First, I think it's in order to express our gratitude for Mr. Rob and Herman for giving us the platform to talk about such a serious situation that is happening in my country. We've been trying for the last 3 to 4 months, find good-hearted people, people who love freedom and democracy, to help us show the world the dire situation that the biggest democratic country in Latin America is under right now. So I express here our gratitude, and I'm sure I speak on behalf of the vast majority of the Brazilian people who love freedom and love democracy, that we are forever in debt for this generous action. Before I start, I think I ask everyone who is here present today for a little exercise of imagination. I will describe certain characteristics of a country in Latin America, and I would indulge you to try to figure out what country am I talking about. This country we have now, the justice making the opposition ineligible, taking away their political rights. This country, there are sitting members of the congressmen being arrested for their opinions. There is persecution for whoever seeks transparency in the election. There is a total criminalization of one side of the political spectrum. The media has become completely controlled by the judiciary. One person decides what can be said and what cannot be said, and if you defy this person, you go to prison. One person admits that he is the victim of persecution, but he's also the investigator, he is the accuser, and he is the judge, and he's the one who sentences whoever defies his words. And there are hundreds and hundreds of political prisoners. Many of you might be thinking that I'm talking about Nicaragua, maybe Cuba, or maybe Venezuela. Well, it's no secret. For the meeting we're having here today, I'm talking about Brazil. Yes, I'm not talking about known dictatorships of Latin America. I'm talking about the biggest democratic country in Latin America. Before we came for this trip, for this mission, we had a conversation in which we said that there's a big chance that the moment we step our foot back in Brazil, we might go straight to jail. Even at the airport coming here, I remember talking to Bia, we were afraid that we would be detained before leaving the country. And the reason for that is because the same day that we were on the airport to come here, we had this scandal of Twitter Files Brazil. I don't know if you had a chance to look into it, but Elon Musk published the exchange of emails from former employees of Twitter before Elon Musk took over Twitter, in which Alexandre de Moraes ordered Twitter to censor all the right-wing politicians, to delete posts, to delete profiles, and forced them to delete them, but not saying it was a judicial order. Delete them, saying it was against their internal policy. Now, there's a question that I keep asking, and no one is able to explain to me or to give me a right answer. Why is it that Venezuela is considered a dictatorship all over the world, even by the leftists, but Brazil is not? When what's happening in Brazil is even worse than what's happening in Venezuela. Why is it that for Alexandre de Moraes to do what he does is a clear defense of democracy and the rule of law, but when the Maduro does it, this is something that I haven't been able to find one person to explain to me. One person. In Venezuela, we have institutions, right? What makes a country a democratic country? Throughout the history of humanity, we set in place devices and institutions with one goal in mind, to make sure that a tyranny will not happen again. Am I right? But tyranny is like a virus. They always find a way to adapt and use whatever was put in place to make sure it goes to power again. And they are learning how to do that even with our institutions, with Supreme Court, judiciary, parliament, executive, everything. They were able to find a way. They adapted. Again, Brazil is today maybe the battleground for this new kind of dictatorship, a dictatorship that identifies as a democracy. Because nowadays, nothing is what it really is, it's what it identifies as. This is the crazy world we're living in. We call it a trans democracy, a dictatorship that identifies as a democracy. Brazil is today an experiment. It's a laboratory of how to implement a dictatorship disguised as a free country, as a democracy. And if it succeeds in Brazil, make no mistake, it will succeed everywhere else in the world. I see that in many other countries, they are already trying and they are already experimenting what is happening in Brazil. And Brazil is one of the biggest countries in the world. It is the biggest country in Latin America. It is the biggest Christian country in Latin America. I cannot let my country, the country of my children, of our children, become a dictatorship without a fight. And I'm not afraid of being arrested anymore. I gave my life to God, honestly. And the same thing I say to my colleagues that are here today. Ricardo Salles, Polon, Júlia Zanata, Bia, Eduardo Bolsonaro. We know that just by being here, going back to Brazil will be a risk. We know that there is a big chance that we will lose our freedom, but we don't care about losing our freedom as long as we fight for the freedom of our future generation, of the people of Brazil. That's why I really want to thank you again, Mr. Rob Herman, for giving us a platform, for listening to what we have to say. I don't know if we'll have to travel the world with this message, but we cannot let Brazil become a dictatorship. And when I say become, it's to be recognized as one, because it already is. We have here today a journalist, Sérgio Tavares, journalist from Portugal who went to Brazil to cover a protest against what's happening in Brazil. He was almost arrested at the airport. The questions that the federal police asked him was, what do you think of Alexandre de Moraes? Do you like the Supreme Court? Who did you vote for? Now I ask you again, is this a question that a free country, a democratic country, would ask a journalist entering in that country? I don't think, not even Venezuela, you would be detained at the airport and asked such idiotic questions. But that happened to him. And he will go back to Brazil soon to talk about that. Hopefully, he won't be arrested at the airport. So please, we are crying for help to the world, for the love, freedom-loving people of the world. Please pay attention to what's happening in Brazil. And mark these faces of the congressmen that are here today. There's a chance our faces will be in the newspaper pretty soon behind bars. We can be arrested, but not our children. Thank you.
Well, I have a lot to say, but I think my colleagues, they had great speeches here, and I'm grateful to be here today. I would like to go back a little over 30 years in time, making a small yet important retrospective. In 1990, from a seminar promoted by the Workers' Party of Brazil, an international organization called the São Paulo Forum was founded. Among the leftist parties of Latin America were figures such as the current President Lula da Silva and the dictator Fidel Castro. This organization started electing presidents and politicians in the name of promoting Latin American integration. By integration, we are talking about the implementation of socialism. The São Paulo Forum has already promoted meetings with groups such as the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, which was considered a terrorist group by the United States, Canada, and the European Union. Since then, a lot has happened. Lula was imprisoned, along with numerous top members of his party, as my colleagues here already said. In 2018, Jair Messias Bolsonaro, the only right-wing candidate in many decades, was elected, and a never-before-seen persecution began, with incessant narratives to dehumanize him and incriminate him in some way, which persists to the president. We have to talk about Lula's connection with Venezuela. Between 2004 and 2013, none of the more than 45,000 rulings of the Venezuelan Supreme Court were against Hugo Chávez's dictatorship. This enormous sum of legal resolution was studied by the lawyer Antonio Canova in the book The Supreme Court of Justice at the Service of the Revolution. In addition to this, the Venezuelan Supreme Court stripped opponents of their parliament immunity, assumed the functions of parliament, and its electoral tribunal has disqualified all opponents capable of confronting Maduro. In Brazil, things are similar, as we can see. The system began to adjust its gears and persecute not just the right, but any critic and opponent. We no longer have parliament immunity. Many journalists today are political exiles. Parliamentarians have been imprisoned, as well as civilians who protested against the system. It's imperative that the international community of still free countries does not limit itself to just listening and helping to echo the real events in Brazil. History teaches us that liberty is a precious and fragile good, often conquered and maintained at a high cost. I'm deeply thankful for the opportunity to share these insights and reflections with all of you. Thank you, and may God bless you all.
Gracias. Good morning, everyone. Good morning to the member of this honorable House. It's really an honor to be here with this delegation of friends, of colleagues, congressmen, women, journalists, activists, people who really care about this severe situation that we are facing now in Brazil. And it's so refreshing to know that we have parliamentarians here in Europe that also care about the situation, because we know that we are not alone. What we are facing in Brazil, you are also facing in your own countries. We see the violations of freedom. We see the violation of free speech. We see normal citizens being persecuted by the leftist governments all over the world, the woke movement, things like that. They are taking away our freedom. They are invading some sacred spaces in our lives, like our families, indoctrinating our children. There's so much going on. And we can see that it's all the same, because the agenda is a global agenda. So we know for sure that you understand what is going on in our country. Now we are facing something really, really severe, because not only the executive power, but also the judiciary power are together. And now we can say that the Congress in Brazil is losing power. And when the Congress has no power, the people are not represented. And this is something that we really have to talk about. And we know that our Constitution gives us guarantees like absolute, total immunity for our words, for what we say, for our opinion, political opinion. But also now in Brazil, what we are facing is that even us, the people's representatives. We are no longer free to say whatever we think about the political situation. So we have one congressman, now former congressman, who is in jail for 9 years, convicted for 9 years, because he made a video with very rough, very tough words about judges in the Supreme Court. We don't have to agree with his words, but we know that he couldn't be sentenced, he couldn't be in jail for a video and for 9 years. And now we have men and women arrested for the January 8th. And we know it was a group. There were more than 2,000 people in the streets, but only about, well, the police said it was only about 200 people who invaded the buildings, the public buildings, and made damage to the public buildings. But now we have more than 1,800 people who were arrested, and many of them already sentenced for 17 years. And some of them, many of them, weren't even there when, all this confusion took place. They came to Brasilia the next day, but then there is no more rule of law. So this is very something very, very severe that we are facing. And we even had this small businessman, Clériston Pereira, we have to say his name, who, even without setting foot on the Esplanada dos Ministérios, the ministry esplanade, or the Three Branches Square, where the riots took place, ended up dying in prison. So we also have now an old lady, a teacher, Iraci Nagoshi. She's 71 years old, and she was convicted by Justice de Moraes to face 14 years in prison, accused of plotting against the rule of law. So they are accusing these people who were just manifestating, protesting, and protesting is something guaranteed by our Constitution. They are facing 14, 17 years of prison, and they've been accused of trying to do a coup d'etat. So we know it's not only in Brazil, but in Brazil it's more severe because now we have the executive power and, as I said, and the justice together. And now we are facing this absolute lack of free speech. So right now, right here, we know that we are in risk. We are at risk. We don't know what might happen when we come back to our country. We don't know because we've been watching the narrative that's been built now. The newspapers, the media, they're already saying that we are organizing a movement to destroy Brazilians' democracy, that we are behind whatever Elon Musk is doing, because he is facing the judge in Brazil. He said, there is Gustavo is going to talk about the Twitter files in Brazil. And Elon Musk said that Twitter received orders from Mr. Alexandre de Moraes to censor journalists, even congressmen and women, and they were not supposed to say that our pages, our publications were censored because of the order of the judiciary, but they should blame the terms of the conditions of the the Twitter, that we would have violated the conditions. So there's no transparency. And we really know that all of us are at risk because we see this narrative being built. And the media is behind this. So when you don't have a free media to show what's really going on, so there's not much we can do. And this is the situation we have to talk about here, and we are very pleased that we can talk here in the European Parliament, so everyone can be aware of what's going on in our country. So we thank you, and now I will give you back the word so my colleagues can speak as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bia.
Going on about the Twitter, this mission to bring light to the events taking place in Brazil occurs at the exact moment that the Twitter Files Brazil scandal comes to light. I would like to highlight 2 points before of all. First thing is, Elon Musk, the owner of Twitter, current X, bought Twitter in October of 2022, during the Brazil's electoral period. So what we are talking here about Elon Musk and Twitter, these things happened during the Brazil election time. Second thing, Alexandre de Moraes, the Supreme Court Justice, he held the position not only to be Justice of the Supreme Court, but also the President of the Superior Electoral Court, which is the body that administrates and judges everything related to the elections in Brazil. In a recent statement, Elon Musk said that Minister Alexandre de Moraes ordered Twitter to block profiles, include those of parliamentarians, without even the right to contradict or broad defense. And he instructed, as Ms. Biakissis here said, he instructed Twitter to do not inform the blocked users that the order came from him. What else can I talk about this? I'll be very honest with you. Elon Musk has to prove what he's talking. And the other congressman, Nicolas Ferreira, the most voted ever congressman in the last election, he asked by Twitter using X, Mr. Eduardo Cader, Elon Musk, could you please provide us more information about what you're talking about? Do you know his answer? I will do that. But first, I have to take out from Brazil my employees because they are threatened to go to jail. This is very serious. Elon Musk, please, he's not like a Bolsonarist, as part of the media of Brazil is talking now, the Bolsonarist Elon Musk. Or even the Trumpist, because he said by his own that in a couple of years ago, he was used to vote in the Democrat Party. I mean, left wing. So this is not someone from our bubble. This is not someone like a regular guy. He's the most, or one of the most, the richest men in the world talking about it. In response to Musk's recent statements, Alexandre de Moraes decreed a fine of around 17,000 euros per day per each profile that Twitter unblocks. The legacy media in Brazil calls those who unblock profiles as anti-democrats, while the authority that silence people on the internet as the bastions of democracy. This narrative no longer stands up, and things get even worse when you analyze the reasons why these profiles were blocked. The intention is to crush opposition to Lula in Brazil through the unconstitutional use of the Supreme Court. As we are here in a very good environmental, going to the end, Mr. Herman Tesh, I will not read everything that I wrote here. Only to have one idea. My father, former president of Brazil, he was, like a couple of days ago, he was under investigation. Do you know why, Rob? Because we bought a good car, Mr. Frias, because we are rich, because I'm a millionaire. Oh, the son of Bolsonaro is a millionaire now. He used the influence of his father and earned a lot of money while his father was president. No, because there is a video where Jair Bolsonaro was in a jet ski and he passed by a whale on the sea. Yes, I will repeat again, because I see some faces here that maybe you did not realize what I'm talking about. Jair Bolsonaro was in a jet ski on the sea. There was a whale on the coast of the state of São Paulo. In this video, my friend Herman Tesh looks like he was 15 meters close of the whale. That's it. This is the crime. 2 to 5 years in jail. But in Brazil, things always Sérgio Tavares, Lili, Jamile, Marco Antônio Costa. In Brazil, things always can get worse. Do you know who reported this crime for the federal police? The environmental minister of Lula da Silva. The kind of people that go to the COP or sometimes come here together with Lula da Silva to the European Parliament, saying good things about the climate. Oh, I'm worried about what is going on in Amazon. But she has time to stop all of her work, I mean, if she really works, to do this kind of thing. And the first police officer that received this denouncement, he refused to go on with the investigation. But Marina da Silva, the environmental minister of Lula da Silva, she's brave. And she appealed for a second police officer. And this police officer took that. Nowadays, a couple of days ago, this case is no longer under investigation. But my father still has to pay a fine of about 500 euros because other organism called IBAMA is also persecuting him. Not only the police with the environmental minister of Brazil. So going to the end here, one of the practical results that we already have here with the invitation of Mr. Rob and Mr. Herman Tesh is that yesterday, the chairman of the House said that there is no room to withhold the regulation of social media in Brazil. Because everything that is coming up, Mr. Bouchardet, about the Twitter files Brazil, the press noticing that we are here, he said there is no atmosphere to vote the regulation of the social media in Brazil. What is a victory to us? We are very happy with that. And in Brazil, part of the media is starting with a narrative saying that Eduardo Bolsonaro and some other congressmen, we are talking with Trump, with Elon Musk, with our friends from Chega and Vox. In this article, in some of the press, they said that I retweeted Santiago Abascal and I retweeted André Ventura. So this is the network of the extreme, far, far, far ultra-right that is attacking the democracy in Brazil. I'm serious. I laugh. At the first point, I laugh. But the second point is the narrative prepare the judicial actions. And they are smart. Every month, at least twice, all of them, I go out to the US Congress, to Argentina, now here to our friends in Belgium, Portugal. I'm going to the CPAC in Hungary. I hope so, inshallah. They can do that, create this narrative that I'm attacking the democracy with my friends here, to send the federal police to our houses and get our passports and take our passports to stop with this work. Because we are taking them out from this comfortable atmosphere. Because one of the things that they love, Mr. Herman Tesh, is travel abroad and talk about democracy and liberty. Be careful. Alexandre de Moraes and some other Supreme Court justices, they go all around the world teaching the good example of Brazil, how did they do to keep the democracy in Brazil. So this is a warning for you, and thank you very, 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 very much about the support and the help that you are doing to Brazil. Thank you.
Because